Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Planning Board meeting of Tuesday, November 28th. We call the meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. If we would all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Keep moving all the flags around on me. All right.
I don't understand that's not in the
Our first order of business this evening is a minor modification request by E&S Holdings LLC for a minor modification to site plan 2 Ricketts Pond Drive, Assessors Map 32, Lot 1-1, in the Spring Street Innovation District. All right. Do we have any? Hi there. I see we've got some information, new information here tonight, and we received a memo from Mr. Glines. Mr.
Dawn
Glines,
Egan. Sorry. I was just introducing myself.
Mr. Glines, have you had the opportunity to review the responses?
Yes, good evening. Andy Glines with Fuss & O'Neill, engineering consultant for the town. So I issued a comment memo earlier today for the minor modification for this project, and the applicant was quick enough to actually issue a response to that comment memo today as well, which I also had a chance to read through. And as I noted in the original memo, the couple of comments and recommendations I had were minor in nature, and the applicant was able to address those today and issue revised plans, which I also was able to look at and back check that they made the changes. If needed by the board or the public, I can certainly elaborate on any of those items, but I think it was...
If you feel the conditions have been met, that's really... Not, otherwise, they will be added on as conditions.
Yeah,
I don't think that's the Dawn Egan from E&S Holdings.
I'm sorry, you're really going to have to
Okay.
speak up.
Dawn
Thank you.
Egan, E&S Holdings for 2 Ricketts Pond on the minor mod. I don't think that's the most current one we sent over, Fuss O'Neill. I have hard copies, but I did email them if anybody wants to see them too.
Which...
These are the ones in our package, right?
I have...
Just the landscaping plan, the back looks different. That's why I'm calling it out.
Okay.
Does any-
Okay, because I have 2 separate copies of it.
Right, I had submitted one earlier today, well, later today, which I guess Mr. Glines had a chance to review. But I have hard copies if we can't pull up the electronic. There we go.
By the way, it's going to get cold, so bring a hat.
Is this, Mr. Bott, is this the one that was submitted today? This... With the one that included the revisions to Andy's recommendations, Mr. Glines' recommendations?
The most recent one I have got is a response letter and additional parking plan set.
There's the layout, grading
That-
advantage plan.
That looks
Correct.
correct. That one looks
facility
correct.
plan, and landscaping plan.
So we do thanks to the good folks at IT and folks at ARPA. We now have our screens operating these days, so we've got the ability to see things. The old school board.
Have we heard back from the fire department in regards to any issues they might have in regards to this?
We did. I am fairly certain that we have, but I just don't seem to have it right here in front of me. So my recollection is that, and I really don't want to recommend it to anybody else. Go away.
We could set it as part of the conditions. If
Yeah, the
unavailable.
Carver Fire Department reviewed the plan. And our reviewer has taken the opportunity to get a little, he hasn't been able to write for a couple of days because of his hand surgery. I'm not supposed to say that on TV, though. So, yeah, he has reviewed the plan and commented that there weren't any issues with access to the site because essentially we were just putting in a few parking spaces on the periphery. We
Right,
can make that conditional on the review of the fire department.
right, because I know they have the fire lane in that area.
Correct.
All right. I would like to see a second row of staggered arborvitaes behind the deciduous plants. It doesn't have to be a lot, 3, 6, 9, just because you're going to be parking facing outwards towards the street, and the parking is now facing the street. Maybe add 8 or 9 as a second row to more, if that's not a problem.
I don't have any objection. I just have to be careful to leave enough room for those to grow and to stay out of the
Yes.
stormwater. So I don't know. I mean,
Right.
I'm not sure. It's a high pitch berm. If you've been by there, I've submitted pictures. There's not a lot of room to add a lot of rows. It's a very thin
Maybe
area.
rhododendrons or something
Sure.
shorter or smaller that will grow without getting too tall and can be trimmed back as necessary. Any other concerns, questions, or comments? All right, so the chair will accept a motion to approve the minor modification request by ENS Holdings LLC to Site Plan 2 Ricketts Pond Drive in the Spring Street Innovation District with the condition that some type of evergreen be planted behind the deciduous trees to create blockage.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Gatsky,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Sordillo. Do we have any further discussion?
Are you going to make your pavement schedule?
Yes, I will, as of this week. Thank you for asking.
And we wanted to add a contingent on the fire department.
Yes, continue as an addendum.
Review regarding circulation.
Is that acceptable to you, Mr. Gatsky?
Yes, I will amend
Is
my.
that acceptable
yes.
to you? All right. And so amended. Mr. Gatsky?
Aye.
Evan Robinson says aye.
Ellen Sedillo says aye.
Don Williams says aye.
And Mr. Shea says aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
All right, so this is our first handoff from computers, so hopefully this goes swimmingly well.
All right.
While you are reading the review, I am going to toggle from my computer to Zach's, and it's going to go great, and there's not going to be one issue ever.
All right. Our next order of business is public hearing on the application of Route 44 Development LLC requesting a definitive subdivision approval entitled Definitive Subdivision Plan for Route 44 Development LLC, Route 44 Commerce Park pursuant to the Carver Subdivision Control Bylaw for property located at off Green Parkway, formerly known as Montello Street. Assessors Map 20, lots 2, 2-1 and 14, and Map 22, lots 3, 3A, 3B, 3C, 3-1, 4, 5A, 10, 10-1, and 11 in Carver, Mass, showing 4 proposed non-residential lots in the Green Business Park District. All right. The board makes note that the preliminary subdivision application was ruled incomplete, lacking necessary and required information. But we will continue. This new plan much more closely aligns with the conceptual plans as approved through MIPA and the URP process. All right, good evening. If you could give us a little narrative and rundown on this project.
Sure, good evening. My name is Zach Richards. I'm with Bowler, site civil engineering and landscape architecture firm. With me tonight is Alex Horgan, who's the senior lead design engineer on the project with the owner applicant, Route 44 Development LLC. We have Robert Delhome and George McLaughlin, and then with Dane Torpy, we have Susan Murphy as well on the project team. Quick team intro, again, as the chair alluded to, and thank you all for the time tonight. We've been hard at work since the preliminary subdivision filing, taking some of the feedback that we heard from both the board and the community, incorporating that and preparing the definitive subdivision plan that's in front of you tonight. We have a pretty extensive project team that's been hard at work on this project. That includes, aside from those I already introduced, Sanborn Head as the geotechnical engineer that performed some of the soil testing, test pits as part of the project. Lucas Environmental LLC is the wetland scientist. They did the delineation as well as the ANRAD and NOI filing with the Conservation Commission. We have VHB, who's our traffic engineer, and then On-Site Engineering Incorporated specializes in sewer, specifically septic, wastewater treatment, and water improvement infrastructure. Again, a quick rundown of project history of what got us here tonight. Back in March 30th of this year, we filed the preliminary subdivision plan filing. Following that process, we worked with the town to prepare for and attend a technical review committee meeting, which was attended by all the, most of the town department heads. And we got a lot of good feedback, really walked through an updated plan at that point with them and tried to incorporate as much early feedback and questions as we could early on in the design process. End of August, we submitted an ANRAD filing with the Conservation Commission. That was subsequently approved on September 20th, and there was an issuance of order of resource area delineation. Then on October 17th, we formally filed the definitive subdivision with the planning board that's in front of you tonight. Soon after, we filed a notice of intent associated with the subdivision filing, and that's for some of the work that's occurring within the buffer zones and riverfront area on the site. We attended a Conservation Commission hearing on November 15th, at which point it was generally well received, and continued to the following hearing, which I believe is next week. And that leads us to the hearing tonight in front of the planning board to present the definitive subdivision. Really quick, this is existing conditions aerial here. A little bit of a refresher. The overall project site is a little over 227 acres. It's quite large. It's bordered by Route 44 at the top of the page there, and that's actually to the south. So we've reoriented the plans and the layout a little bit from how it was presented previously. That's as a result of engineering design. As good practice, you want to station and design your roadway from the existing roadway out, and the stationing wants to be left to right. So obviously, our site fronts on Green Park Way, which is also on the left side of the page there. And those roadways will be tying into Green Park Way, extending left to right. So that's why the change for the orientation, not to try to confuse everyone. What we've shown here in in color is, for reference, some of the buffer zones and resource areas. You can see they're pretty thorough throughout the site, which is why it took some time to do the ANRAD, and we wanted to be very thorough in doing that and securing the ORAD. We've got the 65-foot is in red, 65 no-touch buffer, the 100-foot buffer in green, and then the riverfront area is at the upper left-hand portion of the existing site that's shown in yellow. That's the 200-foot riverfront area. And you'll be able to see it a little bit better on some of the plans, but I thought an aerial was helpful to just show some of the existing conditions out there, a series of old cranberry bogs, in addition to the wetlands, and a network of paved and gravel roadways, and mostly previously developed area. Moving on to the proposed subdivision. This, I thought, again, would be helpful to see on an aerial. Again, we've got Route 44 at the top of this, this image here, Main Street, and then Green Park Way, which again is formerly Montello Street, on the left side of the page. We have two new proposed roadways, Road A and B, that come off of Green Park Way and work their way into the site. Road A ends in a cul-de-sac and intersects with Road B at a point such to limit that dead end to less than 600 feet as required by the subdivision regulations. What we've created here in this proposed subdivision plan is 4 buildable lots, lots 1 through 4. Maybe a little hard to make out here. One of the lots is surrounded by Road A and B, located within the roads. Another lot 1, is just below Road A, and that's about 20 acres. Lot 2 is the one in between Road A and B. That's about 14 or so acres. And then we have lots 3 and 4 in the rear of the site, which constitute about 107 and 25 acres, respectively. In addition to those 4 buildable lots, we're proposing 2 drainage parcels, drainage parcel A and B, which are located in close proximity to Road B and the cul-de-sac along the Road B frontage. And then the owner applicant, as part of this subdivision, has committed to maintaining an open space parcel, which is majority of the cranberry bogs and open water area that you can see at the upper left-hand portion of the site on this this image, and that's planned to be maintained as open space as part of the project. Jumping into some of the technical design elements, and I'll try to keep this moving and happy to dive into more detail at the end. We did a very thorough review of the subdivision regulations as part of this project and numerous meetings with town and town department heads to coordinate and make sure we were interpreting these to the best of our ability. As a result, we did determine that 1 waiver request would be sought from the rules and regs. There are essentially 2 regulations that govern, one, the size of the sheets, the plan set sheet sizes, 24 by 36, which is what we've submitted, and the other, that an index sheet at a scale of 1 inch equals 100 feet to be included. The site's at such a large, it's so large that needed to be a 1 inch equals 200 foot scale. So it's really more of a, both of them would have conflicted based on the size of the site. So we chose to seek relief on the scale so that we could fit the whole site on 1 index sheet. Additionally, there were a number of regulations that were outlined in the submission and those letters that we worked with the town to review and deemed not applicable, as they apply, their application is really for residential subdivisions. So that's further outlined. I won't go through all of those at this point. The roadway design elements that we considered as part of the proposed subdivision, the roadways we determined would be major roadway class, fall into the major roadway classification, which is greater than 2,000 average daily trips. We're proposing a 60-foot right-of-way, which is, again, as required by the subdivision regulations. We've been thoughtful about the curb cut locations. If I flip, I'll go to the engineer plan. But again, we've got Green Park Way on the left here. Road A, which is the road on the bottom of the two that ends in a cul-de-sac. That's been thoughtfully located at a major bend in Green Park Way and formerly Montello Street. And that was done thoughtfully in coordination with the traffic engineer to maximize site distances and make sure we were meeting that minimum site distance requirement under the regulations. Furthermore, the regulations require that a minimum of 250 feet be provided between curb cuts. So we've situated Road B about 300 feet to the south or page up from Road A, which exceeds that minimum requirement and was reviewed by the traffic engineer and deemed appropriate and sufficient. Other design elements, minimum center line radius of 500 feet, vertical curves not less than 500 feet, so those roadways have been designed in compliance with that, and that drove a little bit of the layout and how you see the configuration on the page. The intersection site distance I already touched on, but that's 335 feet for both roadways. And then the dead-end streets shall be no longer than 600 feet. Again, that cul-de-sac beyond the intersection of Road A and B is about a little less than 590 feet long. Quickly, roadway cross-section. The roadway is made up of two 12-foot travel lanes. We've got a 3-foot shoulder on each side edge of the travel lane from the travel lane to the curb. And then we've got 6 feet, which consist of the curb itself and a 5-foot grass strip, a 5-foot sidewalk beyond that, and then a grass strip beyond that to get you the full 600 feet, again, overall. So here's our index sheet that I had mentioned before at a 200 scale. Again, it's hard to make out a lot at that scale, but it gives a good depiction of the overall site. Again, Route 44 at the top of the page, Green Park Way on the left. You can see we've got some dashed boxes on this index sheet around Road B and Road A. We started from the top down, so we've got a sheet A and B series that follow Road B, and then we go to Road A, which is sheet C and D. So I'll very quickly flip through some of these plans so you could see the level of detail and how they lay out and correspond to that overall index sheet. Again, this is Road B, working off of Green Park Way on your page left there. We've provided ADA compliant sidewalks and crosswalks at all intersections for pedestrian access. There are light fixtures provided along the roadway, a little less than 100 feet spacing on center. We've got proper stop bars and signage proposed. There are 2 detention basins proposed as part of the project to manage stormwater runoff, treatment and infiltration. One of them you can see here just above Road B. It's got a fence around it, proposed fence, and an emergency spillway there. We've been a little thoughtful in the shaping and landscaping that goes with those. Moving down Road B, ultimately to the intersection with Road A on the far right side of the page there, you can see the second detention basin, which is in the upper right portion of the sheet here, that manages the remainder of the runoff from the proposed subdivision. Again, hydrants also shown on these plans, spaced a minimum 500 feet on center as required by code and in coordination with the fire department. And this is Road A, again, coming off of the bend in the roadway, which maximize site distances there, and moving page left to right down to the cul-de-sac here, the intersection with Road B. And And I want to point out that we have been thoughtful, again, with the cul-de-sac, and it ties into the access easement, which is kind of off the upper right-hand portion of that cul-de-sac that provides access back to the cell tower in the rear. So that's been well contemplated, and I'll touch on that a little bit more later in the presentation. Again, reviewed very closely with the fire department. We had the technical review meeting, as well as a follow-up meeting to review that hydrant spacing and also fire truck access. We prepared a truck turn plan for that cul-de-sac, and we've received a couple letters from them for review of both that truck turn to their satisfaction and the proposed water infrastructure. Jumping into the grading plans, again, pretty busy to see on the screen. That's even smaller than the plan sheets, but you can see the contours, and you can make out that basin a little bit better here at the top of Road B there. Stormwater in general, substantial improvement over existing conditions. Today, we've got a lot of developed area and roadway, as you could see in the aerial, that really has no stormwater management infrastructure at all. It sheet flows off, and some of that infrastructure's, again, sheet flows right into resource areas, and has, some erosion there. So what we're proposing is a fully Mass DEP compliant stormwater system. We're meeting all of the stormwater standards as a new development, not a redevelopment. We're providing greater than the 80% TSS removal. That's achieved through a series of deep sump hooded catch basins and water quality units. There also is, a grass swale proposed at the front of Lot 2 along Green Parkway there to manage some of the flows from Road A and get them back to that basin at the top of the page. We're providing the required, minimum 60% phosphorus removal through those treatment units and the infiltration basins. We're providing for a water quality treatment volume of 1 inch, and that's designed as a LUPL, so that does meet the highest level of water quality treatment volume, as well as the required recharge volume. We've got good sandy soils out here. So as I mentioned, we did do a number of test pits, both along the center line of the roadways and within those proposed infiltration basins. Those were coordinated closely with both Board of Health and DPW for their review, observation, and approval. And infiltration, doesn't appear to be a challenge. Again, good infiltration rates on those sandy soils. I think that covers most of the stormwater. Again, flipping to page B, you can see some off-grading required there, and you can see the basin in the rear. There we go, and a little bit of a cut slope. We've looked closely at the earthwork required as part of the proposed subdivision plan, and identified areas for that to be stored and stockpiled and stabilized on site, which was part of the submission package. So no need for any removal off-site or a land removal permit. Flipping back to the rear, again, this is the basin, the larger basin above the cul-de-sac there, and some of the off-grading. Jumping into the utilities briefly, I hit on this before, but we've got hydrants spaced at 500-foot max, and a 12-inch water main that loops through those roadways, and actually loops back and connects to Green Parkway. As part of that, we reviewed that closely with the fire department, and that was deemed adequate based on their letter from November 15th. They did note, and we've coordinated this closely with the town throughout the design process, that any future water service improvements, which, we know there are some challenges with the existing water infrastructure, but those would be further identified through the site plan review and approval process. as those developments and projects are proposed in the future. So we do note that, and that will require close coordination with both the fire department and North Carver Water District, at which time, we will have identified, hopefully, a user and a demand associated with any such project. Additionally, I mentioned a lot of the soil testing. There's been extensive soil testing on site, aside from that, which was done as part of, to meet the requirements of the definitive subdivision. That's provided for suitable areas for septic systems and/or treatment plants, whatever is deemed necessary and appropriate based on future projects, and that design will be performed as those developments are identified. I mentioned the access easement. So this was an exhibit that I thought was helpful to just show a proposed relocation of the existing access easement that serves that cell tower. The existing one's shown in blue here, and it actually cuts through the resource area, the wetlands, and what we're proposing to do is relocate that easement to align with the access roads that they actually utilize to serve that cell tower. And then that it will end at the cul-de-sac and the end of proposed Road A there, which you can see in the bottom left-hand portion of that image. Other utilities that I didn't touch on briefly, we're providing for telecom conduits and handholds to serve future developments. So we've been thoughtful about incorporating that in the utility design. Electrical conduits and vaults. So no above ground poles, right? It's all underground electrical infrastructure to serve the future developments, and a gas main that circulates through the roadways. As part of the Green Parkway, Montello Street improvements, they did extend the gas main along the site frontage as well as the water main. So it's well served in that regard. Lastly, I'll touch on the landscape plan, which we're showing here over the aerial, again, to help you kind of visualize the limits of work. That green area to the bottom right is actually, that's our proposed stockpile earthwork staging area. And that's, again, mostly developed. You can see under from the aerial that there's some paved areas there. We're proposing over 170 trees, street trees, as part of the proposed subdivision. Adequate screening and landscape buffers from the detention basins and grass swale is required by the regulations. And additionally, I want to point out that through the Conservation Commission process, as part of our notice of intent, we are doing some work within the 200-foot riverfront area. And as part of that, proposing some extensive mitigation, which you could see in the top left portion of this graphic. There's a lighter green hatch there. That's an existing paved roadway that ties back to the cranberry bogs. It's located right up against the resource areas. It consists of about 15,000 square feet. And as part of the project, we're proposing to remove all of that pavement, reloam it, reseed it with a conservation mix, over 60 trees and additional shrubs to really return that natural buffer that wants to exist along the resource area where there's real value for it. So that far exceeds the required mitigation under those regulations, which is a 1-to-1 mitigation. We're closer to a 14-to-1 mitigation. So just wanted to add that as well. I think that covers most of what I had as my key points here. Again, happy to dive into any more detail on any of those items, and like to turn it back over to the board for questions. And thank you again.
Thank you. I have a couple questions. In my opinion, the definitive subdivision plan is so different from the preliminary subdivision application as not to have originated from the preliminary subdivision application, but it is much more in alignment with what was studied and done through the state agencies, MEPA, Secretary of Conservation, Energy, Department of Housing, and all of that. So overall, I think it's a much better design and more in alignment with what the town was expecting in regards to this process. I do have some questions. It's a big project, there's a lot of questions, so some of them may be redundant, some of them I might repeat, so bear with me, please. But originally, Road B was supposed to intersect with the traffic circle at the top, and now I'm curious as to why it was changed to a T intersection rather than either making the main road a circular road and adding a subdivision road off of it, or going with the original one. I'm asking you because I would like your opinion on it.
Sure, yeah, I think, good engineering practice there, that you want that intersection to be a 90-degree intersection, which we've proposed, and that's what we've created, between road B and A there. Coming in at an angle, the traffic engineer did not recommend having an intersection, combined with a cul-de-sac, so it made a lot more sense and was safer to, and consistent with the subdivision regs, to maintain that cul-de-sac as just that, right? A dead end and a cul-de-sac that could serve those parcels. And again, that allowed us to formalize a 90-degree intersection between the two roadways. But still, extend that roadway such a distance into the site that we felt maximized our opportunity possibilities for those lots, depending on, and future developments, depending on how large they wanted to be, and whatnot, so.
I expect Lot 3 and 4, that all entrances will be on the cul-de-sac roundabout.
I believe what we've contemplated right now is one entrance between the cul-de-sac and that intersection. Obviously, we've been trying to be thoughtful about what made sense from a grading standpoint and a number of other factors, really utilities and stormwater. But in reality, we don't know where that's going to land until there's a proposed development online.
Okay.
So that's subject to change. One would be off of the cul-de-sac as currently proposed.
For future reference, I will tell you that if it doesn't come out into the cul-de-sac, that we're gonna look for a barrier to prevent crossing traffic,
Okay.
because over 8,000 trips a day are what's estimated for this site. So, and part of the specific recommendations are not to allow the interaction of heavy vehicles and standard-sized residential vehicles in an opportunity that could cause problems in regards to safety. So it would have to be a right turn only through the cul-de-sac if that happens to come along in the future.
Understood.
Maybe interesting. Do your utilities include future electrical service for electrical car servicing?
I believe what we've utilized here is conservative, and it's a conservative design based on what was previously contemplated as a project here, which again, we think we're going to be under that. The specifics of car, electrical vehicle charging, obviously not solved yet, but we feel good about the size, the conservative nature and infrastructure that we're putting in, that it'll be suitable to serve both those
Okay, I'm asking
contemplated
because
developments and electrical vehicle
it's part of the
charging.
requirements of your infrastructure as permitted through the MEPA EEA number. I don't see a water treatment plant or sewage lines. Again, that's also part of the requirement through the MEPA process and the FEIR through both the Secretary of Energy and MEPA require 1,000 gallon per day system that can handle that. And sewage lines, of course, we require sewer lines from all lots to intersect with that. And it doesn't have to, we're not going through the permitting process in there, but it should be noted on the site plans where the sewer lines are and where the sanitary system's going to be.
Okay, yeah, I will add that we were thoughtful about proposing sewer sleeves, basically, between lots, not knowing, again, what development we may have. It may be such a small user that it would not require a wastewater treatment plant and could be served by individual septic systems on the lots. It may require a wastewater treatment plant. So again, not knowing what the development and the demand's going to be, we were thoughtful about providing sleeves so as to avoid any, needing to rip up the roadway in the future.
Right, I understand that, but you're under certain land use requirements through the permitting process and the NEPA process and the urban renewal process.
Sure.
There's a certain expectations which are clearly outlined in the EIR. And we have to make sure that there's appropriate sanitary systems proposed for the property. We're not going to lock you down to where it is going, but we need to know that there's going to be appropriate sanitary solutions to, clearly, people are going to be using this property, and the sanitary system is going to be used at some point.
Sure, I'll just add that I believe we've documented that there are suitable areas, and there is the ability to do
It should be somewhere on
that.
the plan,
Okay,
along with an idea of where the sewer lines are going to go, where it's
Okay.
proposed. A water tower is also in the FEIR in regards to the insufficiency of the ability of the North Carver water supply to provide enough water on demand to meet the needs of this, as well as fire suppression and various other things. We would like to know where that's being proposed as part of the infrastructure to this project.
yeah, again, neither of those are proposed as part of the proposed subdivision plan. Those will be designed and identified if they're deemed needed as part of the proposed developments as they come online to meet all those permit
Well, it's already been
requirements.
deemed needed through the FEIR process, okay? It's in there, we just want to know where it's proposed, because we have to make sure, again, sanitary, water, utilities, access for vehicles, and then safety of the people that use, health and safety of the people that use this property. Sewer. I didn't get your sewer and transportation memo till this evening, so I haven't had a chance to look it over. Because, again, this is one lot until it's subdivided. Trips a day. Maneuvering and stacking areas.
What is the question?
Well, all right, the FEIR says site access and internal circulation are primary concern, promote safety, efficiency, convenience, and minimize conflict between tractor trailers and vehicles, and there should be maneuvering and stacking areas. I don't know if that's part of the roadway system. I'll ask Mr. Glines when I have a moment, but also the requirements for bus service, and the roads should be adequate for bus, which I expect they are.
Correct.
Based on emergency vehicles and size and heavy equipment size. Trucks should be prohibited from idling during parking and loading. I don't think that's important at this point.
Yeah, again, I think all that will be documented as part of the individual developments.
All right, again, sewer, water, utilities, and safety are going to be our primary concerns. Mr. Glines, I would like you to do a review, or the board would like you to do a review on this project based on the MIPA, FEIR, and the certificate of the Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs final impact report
Andy Glines with Fuss and O'Neill. Again, I'll make sure and coordinate with town planner, make sure that we're referencing the latest versions of all those documents and include them in our formal review. Right now, we currently have a draft review that Fuss and O'Neill has completed, but I haven't issued that to the town or the applicant yet. I wanted to update it based on this evening's discussion.
All right. I believe the two reports to MEPA was January of 2019, and the certificate was of April of 2019. Bus shelters aren't required at this point unless GATRA extends it, but it should be noted on the plan that, or taken into consideration, that should GATRA bus service be extended to this area, that shelters should be proposed. Any water treatment plant should be 420 feet from wetlands and private wells. We covered electric vehicles. During the construction process, requirements for minimizing dust with wet suppression, covering the trucks, minimizing debris on site, and we'll have to discuss the hours of construction so that it's not, because you're bordering a residential area. Mufflers on construction equipment and to minimize vehicle idling. Implement diesel reduction strategies outlined in Mass DEP Diesel Engine Retrofit in the Construction Industry 2008 How to Guide. Recycle 75% of construction material, but basically the conditions are more or less going to be what was outlined in the Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs, FEIR. Questions from the board?
What's the proposed final elevation?
The final elevation of the roadway.
Well, you're going to be subdividing the lots, preparing the lots for development and everything else. What's the final elevation you guys are?
It will really be dependent of the development that goes in. I will say that the roadways generally range, in the elevation from 88 up to close to 100 in elevation. So generally anticipated that the pads will be somewhere in that elevation of 90 to 95 range. But again, very dependent on those final developments, the use, the design.
So the roadway is going to run from 90 to 115?
No, just up to 100, about 100, elevation 100.
Okay.
And that's through some of the cut areas. As seen on this slide here, so that's.
Has there been any, have y'all done any water testing?
Water testing.
Water quality?
Water quality.
If I know that you're looking at the possibility of doing a public utility based on the size of the customer that intends on building in these areas, but if you got somebody who's small, who's not required all the public utilities and stuff like that, they opt for a private well and sewage. What I understand, I saw you guys did the soil testing for the sewage. What about water quality testing for in the event of a private well?
It's not anticipated that a private well will be utilized to serve the proposed developments. It's anticipated we would use the town infrastructure. That said, as you pointed out, there's been a lot of history on the site of soil testing and whatnot. And in this area of work, there was nothing as part of that exploration that would indicate that there is the inability to do so.
John, I'm going to ask you to pull that microphone closer.
Sorry.
And if that's deemed a path in the future, we would obviously check all those boxes and local, state, federal regs to do so.
All right. So on the previous discussion, you were talking about doing the sewage sleeves. Where in the plans are those located? Because
Those are in the same areas.
Gas lines, I see the telecom lines and different things like that, but I haven't seen anything for the proposed sewage.
I think if you look near some of the proposed curb cuts, again, they are sleeves, essentially pipe from one lot to the other. And those are shown on the utility plan sheets in close proximity to where we've stubbed out the proposed electrical, the proposed telecom, the proposed water service to each lot. You'll see there is a sewer sleeve as well connecting one side of the road or one lot to the other side of the roadway.
Designated truck routes and prohibited traffic from taking a left into Plimpton to the residential side for construction and delivery and heavy vehicles. And there will be multiple monitoring wells in regards to this. We'll discuss it with the engineer, the Board of Health, and I believe there's one other agency we need to consult.
Mr. Chair, if I can, I have some general comments,
Please.
questions. Andy Glines with Fuss and O'Neill again. One of the items that the applicant mentioned earlier is the classification of the road, which, as I understand, was discussed previously, but I'd recommend including that as a finding in the ultimate decision, clarifying there'd be a major road. In my opinion, the right-of-way that they're proposing and all the curvature meet the requirements, but the way the subdivision rule and reg is written is that's in the opinion of the planning board. So because a lot of the other regulations are contingent on that finding, I just want to make sure that that's included in the ultimate decision where, as applicant outlined, a lot of the other sections of the rules and regs that they're saying are not applicable, or because those sections are applicable to minor or secondary roads. So I think it's important to have that finding for the major road included.
It was part of the reason I was curious why it wasn't a circular roadway and it was designed as two, quote, major roads intersection. So they just seemed...
Yeah, there isn't much in the definition for, major road, with the exception of the anticipated trips, which, in the opinion of the board, you can make that determination on whether or not these roads would meet the anticipated trips after future development.
Currently, it's rated at over 8,300 trips a day, which would, I'm sure, fall
yes.
well into that major
Correct.
road category.
And one of the sections pertains to the alignment and minimizing earthwork required, which I think the applicant did a good job with Road B, keying it into the existing slope there, even though there will be some cut and obviously a steep shoulder there, at least until that site is graded for future development. There's only about 5 or so feet of cut for Road B through that section. Road A, on the other hand, as you can actually see on this plan, there cutting through a hill, and I guess if the applicant could elaborate on why Road A alignment isn't shifted as really, it's planned south, but it's north, following the existing utility easement, which is 60 feet wide, which I understand will be expunged, but that area is already running parallel to Road A and located on the same property, and would actually get the intersection of Road A and Road B further away, and then not have one of the Road A right on the curve of the existing intersecting road. So I don't know if you can elaborate on kind of the alignment aspects on that.
Sure, I'll add to that a bit. Again, it's anticipated there would be a lot of that will be cut down as part of as the developments are put online. We anticipate, again, given the elevation of Green Park Way, that those pads will end up closer to the roadway elevation. So although it looks like a big cut for the roadway, we wanted to be thoughtful about the full build condition, right? And not design around the temporary, what might be a reduction in cut, right, in the short term. As I mentioned before, that was driven a lot by sight distance and review with the traffic engineer at that bend in the roadway. And the other driver was just to not have too narrow of a lot that you end up with, again, below Road A. So not to diminish the potential for a development in that lot one in the bottom left portion of the page there. Because if you could see, if you slide that roadway down and maintain a lot of those major road classification design elements, the 500-foot minimum radius, et cetera, it becomes a more constrained buildable lot in that area.
We've had previous discussions about pervious sidewalks. Now, I don't know, I think it's, I don't know where this falls in regards to, I'm sure it's a help in regards to financially, but I don't know where it falls in regards to handicap, accessibility, and the various other features. But if it's, I don't have a problem giving them that option because, again, it's kind of the direction that the town's moving in.
There certainly are options to have permeable sidewalks that would meet ADA requirements. Depends on the surface and pavement materials that would be used. In general, permeable.
You're not required to answer
Well,
tonight. So
yeah,
I want to give you time because I know
Yep.
it's all new to us too, and we've had that big presentation
And,
recently.
I will certainly provide formal comments on this in our review, but in general, I think that the maintenance and future risk of the areas not being maintained and long-term functioning as permeable pavement, it wouldn't be worth installing them, especially for a subdivision of this size, where it's actually more beneficial to have the landscape strip between the sidewalk and the roadway, where that functions as a treatment component for the runoff prior to and promotes infiltration before that stormwater runoff from the sidewalk gets into the roadway. And sidewalks in general have less pollutant loads than parking lots or roadways in general. So, you're kind of putting in more upfront capital cost and more long-term operation and maintenance and not really gaining as much benefit.
Okay. Questions from the board?
Heard what I would do.
Well, this is a public hearing, so if you'll excuse us, I would like to open the hearing to the public. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very well done.
Thank you all.
Please, if you would just identify yourself and write your name down for our minute taker.
Good evening. Mark Rothfuss, 20 Montello, the Plimpton side of Montello, Dirt Road area. Please, Mark. We can hear you better.
Yeah.
Our note taker is taking notes from the recording live, so we can speak into the mic, that'll help everybody.
Sure. Couple questions. I'll just put them all out there and you can go forth with them. Connie, I think you've already spoke to it. I don't know if it's got to be redefined, but, you know, this was such a massive project. We followed it, and I can speak for some of my neighbors on Montello and Heather's Path through the whole DHCD thing. And so we're wondering, is this still RDA? Is this still under the state? Is it DHCD involved? And all these components that we've talked of, is it now just here locally because this is more of a segmented approach to this project? Or, you know, just wondering what larger picture oversight there is. So that was question one.
All right.
You got it.
As I understand it, the largest oversight picture is the DHCD, Department of Community Housing Development. They're the ones that permitted it under Section 121B for urban renewal. But then it falls under multiple state agencies, which I think MIPA and the Secretary of the final certificate that was issued, Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs. Again, it also falls under Fisheries and Wildlife, a Mass Historical District, Rare Species Study. There's a multiple of agencies involved in this. But the bottom line is that the plan is out there, and it's been established and approved, and all parties, town, and RDA, and developer, all have agreed to it. So again, that's why part of my issues with the previous application were that this one much more closely aligns to what was expected and what was proposed at the time and what all the numbers are for. And mostly I deal with that.
Yep.
But MIPA is the oversight, has a broad range of oversight in regards to this project.
Does MIPA have to re-look at this plan versus the last submitted, the larger?
Well, I believe they do if we're going to propose a separate
We've got different sewage, we've got
different
different water.
sewage. There's been modifications to the roadway. I don't know that the modifications to the roadway are going to be considered a major one, but I know that the septic system on some level will have to be approved through MIPA. Any changes to infiltration in the ground, because this property is a singular lot and exceeds the requirements, and I believe there's a groundwater discharge permit involved, and that might be a federal agency, but I'm not entirely certain on that.
Very important to all of us in that area, and I've
Mark, if you could just.
yeah, of importance to everybody in that area and all of Carver and Plimpton and everywhere else is the remediation. I've been on the portal and collected all the documents and been following that closely, but what I don't hear, you know, any status on that. I looked at, maybe I'm missing it, but I've looked at the entire 218-page Phase 4 mitigation plan, and because I live right there, I see that gate open every morning. I know a lot's been going on up there, and, you know, certainly appreciate any mitigation that's happening, but like we don't see where that's at. I went to the Concom meetings, tried to ask those questions, and kind of get shut down. You know, we'd like to know, you know, here we're building, we're proceeding with a plan and building. Where is this whole pollution? Where's the PFAS at?
I believe that the PFAS remediation has been completed this summer, but we'll ask. I believe I have.
So coupled with that, and it just, this so seems like such common sense. Sometimes you step back from things and you're like, wow. So I've seen all the wells up there. There's a lot of them. And I don't doubt that water has been looked at for many, many years. But, you know, we're talking about digging and everything else. But I had to go way out of my way to get DEP to my house and sample and get that taken care of. I had Miss Gallagher and Miss Dubrowski out. So I know my water is okay for the time being. How come that's not offered to anybody on Heather's Path or anywhere else?
What's not on?
Testing of water. You know, we got a cleanup site there. Lots of wells on the property, but nobody, no abutters. So can that be looked at maybe?
I would think that,
And again, ComCon, nah, no answer for that.
I don't know that that's under our purview, but I'll check into that.
I believe all that falls, the testing and everything falls directly under Board of Health.
Under the Board of Health and
I know that
Mass DEP,
They handle.
expect
They
handles.
handle the testing over at our place,
right?
so.
Although,
It all goes through Mr. Fork.
right. I will look into that. Prior and post development.
Yeah, I
I'll
mean,
see if I
again,
can't
it
look into
seems
prior and post development.
Sort of,
testing.
thank you. It seems like sort of a common sense item. I've built a pretty good filtration system, taking into consideration if there's any future problems at a lot of expense, but it is what it is. Two more pieces, sorry.
Don't be sorry.
They call it, major roadway or whatever the general term was. Just concerned about lighting, and I know there'll be future lighting as tenants or buyers go in, but the initial lighting, I just want to throw out is anything that can be done in consideration that there are that neighborhood very nearby to avoid the look of like a big halo illuminated dome at night. I mean, are we talking about diffuse lighting?
I will ask my engineer in regards to that, because we have actually very extensive lighting requirements in this town.
I can weigh into that now.
Yes, please.
So I guess with we've taken a close look at the fixtures that are proposed, make sure they're dark sky compliant. So basically shielded so that they're directing the light downward and not providing light pollution, although there's always some light pollution with new lights.
Yep.
But we'll also be looking at their proposed photometric plan, which would be the spacing of the lighting and how those fixtures are diffusing and directing the light, and making sure it's directed towards the road, not in the sidewalks, and not outside into the abutting.
What was the planned height of that?
Sorry,
The planned height of those fixtures as it sits now?
I don't recall off the top of my head. I guess if the applicant wanted to weigh in.
That's all right. That's okay.
There's set regulations for maximum heights of fixtures, whether it's within a roadway or a parking lot. So it would be confirming that the fixtures would be in compliant with those regulations as part of that lighting review as well.
In this particular situation on the roadways, is it 15 feet, 18 feet? That's okay. No, but we'll come back to that one.
I think my other one was, just on a side note, when that intersection was being done at Mass Works, the new roadway was put in, the new surface, I should call it, when they did not call it Montello anymore, now it's Green Parkway. We had a big problem on the dirt Montello with trucks coming in daily, not even daily, hourly, a lot of big trucks on a very, very narrow dirt road, and can't have that anymore. I mean,
No, that shouldn't have been allowed to begin with. It's strictly prohibited.
It's-
Designated truck routes and,
No, it shouldn't have been, but Landers was contacted. We went through you guys, our Plimpton officials, to the point where I was stopping them, and I'll do it again. We can't have trucks on that dirt road.
no, it is specifically prohibited, and designated truck routes are supposed to be provided for the truckers, and I know the FEIR prohibits them from the Plimpton side.
Okay. All right, that's all I had. Thank you very much.
No, thank you for your time tonight.
All right.
Is there any further? Please step on up, introduce yourself, if you'd write your name down for our minute taker.
I have it down. Jean Winslow, 28 Heather's Path. I do have to say, this is a lot more attractive than the original plan. Couple of concerns, which he addressed and you had mentioned also, the 8,000 vehicles, is that estimated at, I thought the original one that you showed said 2,000.
It was
Is that
estimated by the state
per-
agencies at 8,300 and
Whatever, okay. So that, first and foremost, that intersection, which, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't understand why the light was there and like Dunkin' Donuts and wasn't planned into that area, because I can't even imagine additional traffic in that spot, because that area in itself right there with the gas station and Dunkin' Donuts is atrocious. But for these buildings, what is that estimated size of the 4 lots for what the buildings are going to be?
the size of the lots or the size?
The size of the buildings.
I don't,
So if I,
please.
So I'm Tom Bottom, the town planner here, and we've talked about this a few times before. What's in front of the board right now is a subdivision plan. There are no buildings, there are no projects. This is a roadway creating lots that people can put buildings on at some point in the future. So what we're looking at today is simply creating a roadway, making sure the drainage and the infrastructure is in place for that. At some point in the future, when people come in with a project for a building, requires a special permit for the planning board, those are the things that trip the thresholds under the MEPA review, under the FEIR. Right now, all they're doing is building a road and making sure the infrastructure is in place to get things on and off the site. After that roadway is built, after the planning board has inspected it and made sure it's built to as it should be, after we have a bond on it, after the lots have been released by the planning board, then someone can come in and propose a project for the site. But there are no buildings proposed for this at this point. There's roadways, there's infrastructure, and there's lots. And no building can be put on anything until all those things are done in place to the planning board's satisfaction. So no buildings, only roadways, only infrastructure, only lots.
Okay, so there's no maximum size that can go on there?
Well, it's only one lot. Currently, it's only one lot. It has not been subdivided. We are not subdividing it here tonight.
Oh, okay. I thought the
This
title
is-
of this was
It is. but
subdivision.
It's more inclusive to the roadways, the water runoff, and sewage, utilities, access for emergency vehicles. It's to make sure the property's safe to access.
Okay. So on that note, for the subdivision, or for the roadway, the creating of the roadway, are defined hours of operation going to be in there for
We're going to
like Monday
discuss
through
that,
Friday?
yeah. We're going to, I expect that they'll have some numbers, if they might have numbers tonight to work with, but I'm expecting it's probably going to be a Monday through Saturday, limited on Saturday, but, we'll have to discuss that with what they expect.
Okay, and then I know, and as Mark had mentioned regarding the soil before, because I haven't seen any reports on that, because I know that there was contamination there. Do you know, which I guess I can access those myself
I
somewhere?
know that reports are required to be given, but I don't know if anything's been done to generate those reports or where they go, but they don't come to the planning board.
Okay. And then, I guess that was about it. And when is never mind, because you probably won't know that answer, regarding when it's going to be allowed, not allowed, when the decision will be on it?
Within 90 days, I believe.
Okay.
That's as close as I can do. We can't, right. So it's a huge project, and there's a lot of considerations to be taken into, of course, safety, health, and welfare of not only the residents, but, the abutters and everybody else has to be taken into consideration, along with the land use requirements as set forth by the agencies, the state agencies.
I understand. This was the first time I received, as an abutter, I received a certified letter for this, so that was appreciated.
Because it's a definitive subdivision plan. It's not required on the preliminary plan.
No, it was appreciated. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, if we could just ask, a couple of the questions were hours of operation for construction? Did you have a rough idea?
I think a general idea, I mean, I typically see it like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Maybe
That
that's
might be
pushing it. I don't want
that,
to.
right?
I don't want
This time of
to
year.
corner myself. We could have that answer next time.
Okay, yeah, well, yeah,
We
work
could
on that.
request,
Right,
we'll
we're gonna-
come back with requested hours if that
And
works.
it'll be a little shorter on Saturdays because you're in a residential area.
Sure.
And we're not going to want it on Sundays.
Understood.
And PFAS remediation, I believe there's a letter that I have here that said that's been completed.
Yeah, again, environmental concerns and issues, those have been under Mass DEP jurisdiction. There was an extensive process, phase 1, 2, 3, 4. Went through all of that. Phase 4 completion statement, final inspection as-built construction report, that was completed and provided to Mass DEP in September, mid-September. And then there'll be ongoing monitoring, groundwater monitoring as part of that.
Because I noticed here there were piles and movement piles on the plans here.
Soil and sand.
So
Soil and, yeah.
that's all as part of this, the definitive subdivision alone,
No,
completely
it's part of
separate?
it was listed as, I think, as part of the.
Maybe on the survey, yeah.
It was on the survey, but I didn't know if that had to do with the PFAS remediation, like, it appeared, and, like that was the staging area for where they were going to encapsulate it. So, it should be marked too on the map, where it's encapsulated, so that no building gets done over it unless we know what's going on with it. It should be noted so that we know.
Okay, yeah, we can note that.
All right. Have you notified MIPA in regards to any of the changes that are proposed?
So MIPA was done in connection with the URP. This subdivision's still consistent with that. No changes are needed to the MIPA certificate as part of the subdivision. Again, as any projects that are identified, it'll be determined whether a notice of project change or any further MIPA review would be required, but that would be triggered by a future development project, not the subdivision alone.
All right. Prior and post testing, well testing, lighting, hours of operation. Height of the lights, roadway lights,
25 feet.
25 feet. We're gonna have to do a site walk. They're not gonna be visible from any of the residential areas? Are they? We might.
Sorry, the lots or?
No, the lighting.
The lighting? Again, as Mr. Glines noted, they're going to be dark sky compliant and good engineering practice to ensure that those are pointed downward. And
Excellent. All right. Further questions from the board? Seeing none further questions? Up.
Real quick, can you send a copy of the final remediation issues, the whatever final letter to the DEP that you guys submitted, saying that that the area had been remediated and that all that stuff had been done?
sure, I think we can pass along for ease through Tom.
Through Mr.
Yeah,
Lott,
for record, what was submitted to Mass DEP.
Okay.
Yeah, again, there was a memo included too as part of this that kind of summarized that. It's a nice cheat sheet of 2-pager outlining what was done, what the status is. So that was provided with the materials.
It was actually informative, but yeah,
Yeah,
certificate
but
of.
sure,
Yeah.
we'll pass along
Oh, a much-
the record, the submission for record
Okay.
reference.
Okay, and now I found what I was looking at, and it was the topsoil and sand stockpile, so It wasn't,
So is that as part of the subdivision?
yes, it
Okay.
wasn't part of the remediation process. All right. All right, we all have some work to do. Any further questions from the public? This hearing will be continued. We'll try and get all the answers that you requested, and hopefully all the answers we requested by next time. All right, please, Mr. Bott.
Couple of questions. So if the board wants to do a site walk, and they always do, which is a great practice, we're going to be very lost out there. So we need some stakes, and probably several of them. What's our time frame for your surveyors to get out there and set some stakes for us?
Roadway lots and proposed lot entrances.
We did the best we could to stake it out, not knowing what the request would be. We've got about 25 stakes out there showing the center line of the roadways.
Okay, good.
Hoping
There are-
that would be sufficient for a site walk. Again, not knowing where lot entrances are really going to land. I think it's pretty helpful, and you can kind of make your way along the center line of each roadway and see the limits of the cul-de-sac. We've kind of done four points of that circle.
So
If
stakes
the
are out
board
there.
finds that submission, that's suitable, that has already been
All
done.
right, well, good, because that's obviously time-consuming, and the colder it gets, the harder it is to get a stake.
Sure.
So, again,
So stakes are in place for a site visit.
for the road, you got lot stakes?
As to the property line of all the lots, or?
Yeah, it just, a stake here, a stake four, I think it's only, I'm not looking to get that whole property surveyed. I just
Sure.
want to know, within the roadway system,
Relative to the roadway, kind of where the lot
and
lines?
where
So front
the
corner lot.
potential entrances to the roadway system from the lots are proposed.
Okay.
So the lot corners are going to be pretty easy, because I'm not out there pounding a stake in the ground.
Sure, I don't know if you want to walk out to the lot corners, but I get the gist of,
Yeah.
No.
trying to identify some of
Not
those.
at the back of the lots.
Lots, yeah,
Front
the
of lots
front,
in-
right.
in
We've been
relation
to the
road.
back of the lot,
Understood.
right?
But as we pointed out, where those driveways are going to be are, they're basically placeholders on the plan to know that they're there, but is where they're going to be at is up to who builds what, where.
Right, but yes, and there's, yes, but we should know that there is access and where it could potentially be, or where it's most likely to be proposed to be.
It could be in the middle, or you could have left and right, so you got 400 feet of frontage, it could be one in the middle or one on this side. That's, here's the road, it's gonna be somewhere. I mean, beyond that, how can you even figure?
Well, again, things like crossover traffic have to be taken into consideration. If there's going to be 8,000 cars roughly a day in here, then we're going to have to deal with the safety and traffic issues in regards to this.
8,000
Mass
in the
DOT,
whole 200 acres, not necessarily in this one part,
it's going to be on that road.
well, the front part maybe.
It's going to be on that road. That's
Not
the
road
purpose
eight.
of that road.
Not 8,000 cars on Road A and B, it would be on the other road, goes down further.
It's currently the trip generators is saying 8,300 trips a day coming and going from
Over
that
what?
site.
There's nothing even planned yet, so how can they have 8,000? That's if you
The
build
state
out
did it. The
entire-
state did it based on what was proposed at the time. Now, if the proposal changes, the numbers might go down, but that's currently the number that we're working with. Because no other numbers have been provided.
So I'm optimistic that we could have the surveyor out within a week to add a couple stakes for the lot lines and the driveway entrances as shown, anticipated.
All right, so do you want to talk about a site visit date?
Yeah, the sooner the better, before it gets too cold. So if you think you're ready.
Tomorrow at 4? Oh, that's right, there's a football game.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
tomorrow. He said about a week, so can we shoot for maybe Mr. Gatsky? Seems to be the one with the most definitive schedule. Yours is definitive too, but it's tough to get out there at night, so.
Right, I'm not available Monday through Friday between 12:30 and 5:30. So that's a problem. for me.
Say a week from Saturday at 10 a.m.?
Week from Saturday, what day is that?
I'm afraid to guess, but somewhere around the 8th.
I wouldn't,
December 9th?
I wouldn't base it
Ninth?
on me. If you guys can do it through
I
the week,
will
then
be-
I've got to try to figure something else out.
I will be
Because I'm also not
unavailable.
available on Saturday.
I will be unavailable from Friday through Monday of that weekend.
And you say, don't base it on you,
And
go
I
with the
am
majority. We can make
unavailable
arrangements
for
for you to go if you want. to on
Wednesday of next
Saturday.
week.
Okay, the only problem is I don't get out of work Saturday until 12 o'clock, and then I'm back to work at 3. So
Okay.
I have a 12 to 3 window.
I think Mr. Bott might be able to work that out if it's possible for you to be available. Okay, how about Thursday, a week Thursday noon?
That's 12/7? December
Yes.
7th?
Unfortunately, I'm unavailable that day
Sixth?
at noon.
How about the 6th?
The 6th I could do.
Wednesday, it's pretty check for me. I can do Wednesday morning, 10 o'clock, or Wednesday afternoon after 1, so,
I cannot do this upcoming Wednesday. I have,
no, not
Or-
Not tomorrow, Wednesday.
I'm talking, well,
Okay,
yeah,
alright.
I'm referring to the 5th.
What good,
Because I have,
next Tuesday?
doing a server upgrade.
No
so
worries.
That
Th-
next Wednesday is. off the
Tuesday?
table. Tuesday is, I can do something Tuesday.
That works for me as
The
well.
4th?
Tuesday.
Tuesday the 5th.
Tuesday, the 4th? Oh, 5th, yeah, 5th, yeah. 6th, I cannot do. Yeah.
Bill?
I'm available.
What's the date again?
Tuesday, 12/5, noon o'clock? Is that what we're talking about, or earlier than 10?
10 would be great for me,
Kevin,
but,
did you say that you could be there before noon?
no, he says he's pretty much tied up Monday through Friday.
Saying that I have no leverage between 12:30 and 4:30.
Between 12:30 and 4:30, but at 10
Right,
a.m.
but I'd have to
you can
take
see
time
the-
off from, I'd have to take time off from work before 9:30. After 9:30.
After 9:30. yeah.
Okay,
So 10 a.m. next Tuesday,
It's okay with me.
Give that a shot.
and
The earlier the better.
well, there's nothing magic about 10 a.m., is there? 8:30
you're pushing
in
me.
the morning?
Yeah, I get up at 5:30 because I have to work till about 9 o'clock, so 10 o'clock, right? Is it? Or are you suggesting 8:30?
Well, yeah, if people got things to do, and,
Are you tied up? But
no,
8:30 Tuesday?
oh, okay.
In the
eight-
morning.
8:30 Tuesday morning, yeah.
I would be available 8:30 Tuesday
You
morning.
can't make it.
I'm sorry.
No. Yeah, for Kevin, I would do it, but
All right, so,
Again,
but you
down
can make
one.
10?
Yes.
All right, so we have 10. I feel like an auctioneer. All right,
if Kevin's can make it at 8:30, a little tour through the morning. I don't know.
I mean, that's
I will-
that's nice.
I will leave it-
I'm more than happy to go with Tom when he's available to do it, if you need to see as a full board.
No, I just want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity
Yeah.
to get there. I know we've been out there a couple times, things have changed a lot. It's under changes, a lot of changes have been in the past 18 months, I think, since we've been there, so. Tuesday at 10 is good for us, and I will leave it to you to work out,
so we're back to Tuesday at 10.
yep, with Mr. Robinson in regards to when you might be available.
Tuesday, 10 a.m.
Well, if he can do 8:30, I can definitely do 8:30.
I think.
Like I said, my
Yeah.
schedule after 8 o'clock, my schedule starts getting really cloudy.
Okay.
This all depends on.
Ellen can't make it at 8:30, though.
I'll see if I can change some things around.
Right. Well, like I said, if you're gonna be
If we're
setting
gonna-
up
so
for
we're
10 and making
Right.
accommodations for 8:30, then
Well,
I can join.
all right, so let's set it up for 8:30. And if Ellen,
I'll
if you need
make
to
some changes.
reschedule, I'm
Okay.
sure we can figure it out. So 8:30, week Tuesday?
I could also stick around a little longer if that's helpful, but.
I'll buy you a coffee. There's a place in the neighborhood.
Make that two.
I don't think, I don't think Route 44 Brewery's open at that time, so it'll be coffee.
All right, is there any further questions?
8:30, the 5th.
12:05, 8:30 a.m.
Any,
Something with four-wheel drive or?
I don't, it,
You should be okay with
Yeah.
a regular
Intend on
passenger
having fun
vehicle.
out there.
We usually meet and park on the existing gravel road, just below Road A there. It's the first main road that's,
I'll shoot you a map where we're gonna meet at,
Yeah.
and I'll bring the company truck.
all right. When do we think would be a good time to continue the public meeting to?
Well, on our schedule, because this is a subdivision plan, and it's a definitive subdivision plan, the board has 90 days to act on that plan. That expiration date is January 13th, 2024. Now, that date can be extended by mutual consent by both parties. With that in mind, we have 2 meetings in December and 1 in January. So if there are any things that can be addressed and dealt with and answered by the 5th, by next week, then maybe we can come back and have some more conversations about things on the 5th. Your site visit will be fresh in your mind. So my thought is, if we can do that site visit on the 5th, then we can continue this
Well, we
hearing
can-
until that night and deal with whatever short issues come up at the site visit.
All right.
Does that make sense
don't
for
have a
you
meeting
on
on
the
the
technical
5th.
side of things?
I believe we have a
Yeah,
meeting
no.
on the, we're gonna be discussing when we're having meetings in December. We haven't,
Oh, so we are
Because-
possibly having a meeting on the 5th?
normally it
That
would
night.
be the 12th
So
and the 24th.
our schedule previously has been the 12th and the 26th.
I know that doesn't have anything to do with it.
Well, it does.
Oh, all right.
Because looking at this schedule and knowing that you've got that January 13th date, and I know historically, when an extension has been needed to fill some things in, typically there's an agreement between the applicant and the board. But at that same time, I'm always working at, here's the deadline to get things done. So with that 13th meeting, I anticipated we might be talking about this twice in December. Because we're not going to meet on the 26th, because no one wants to leave Boxing Day to come to a meeting. I certainly don't. I thought the best opportunity would be to meet on the 5th and the 19th, rather than the 12th and the 26th.
Thoughts?
That gets us 2 meetings in December.
Well, we're going to talk about that, not now, or... we're-
Well, we have to continue the public hearing, so we should
Alright.
take a moment to discuss on whether the 5th and the 19th is acceptable to the board.
I feel like we have an obligation where unfortunately we're looking at a holiday month.
Mr. Gatsky? 5th and 19th
Correct.
of December, rather than the 12th and 26th?
Let's see here. Okay, as far as the 19th goes, I'm on call, so I can do my best to be here. As far as that goes, I think that's all I have.
So continue it to the 5th with, I think, is that acceptable, Mr. Bott?
yes.
Yes.
Yep, the 5th works for us, thank you.
All right. So the chair will accept them?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
The site visit, do we have an address? Where are we meeting?
Yeah, I'm gonna secure the spot with Zach and then send you guys all out a message that says,
Okay.
here's the spot with the map.
Thank you.
It'll probably be at the, and the dirt road entrance that's currently existing, if, and we all meet there right on well, it's Green Parkway.
Yeah, just north of the bend in Montello there.
Okay.
All right. The chair will accept a motion to continue the public hearing on the application of Route 44 Development LLC requesting a definitive subdivision approval entitled Definitive Subdivision Plan for Route 44 Development LLC, Route 44 Commerce Park pursuant to the Carver Subdivision Control Bylaw for property located off Green Park Way in Carver, Mass., showing 4 proposed non-residential lots in the Green Business Park District. I will accept the motion to
I'll
continue
make that said motion.
December 5th. Motion made by Mr. Robinson, seconded by Ms. Sardillo. Seeing no further discussion. Mr. Gatsby.
Aye.
Kevin Robinson says aye.
Helen Stillo says aye.
Don Williams says aye.
And Mr. Shea says aye. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you all. Appreciate the feedback.
You have a good evening. Thank you very much. It was a very good presentation. All right.
I don't think I do.
We're not closing the meeting, but it's going to take us about 5 more minutes to close out the meeting, so. Thank you very much. Town planner notes, Mr. Bott.
All righty, so I have a couple of things. While we're on site visits, let's go do in reverse order what's on the agenda. Had some conversations with the,
I think we approved it, we just have to read through it and sign it.
that's the draft, the decision for Rutgers policy.
Yeah.
I'm going to get to that in just a second. We've had some discussions here at the board about the Plymouth Airport expansion. We've reached out to the Airport Commission, and they've extended an invitation for us to come out to their site and take a walk. So I think those dates were the 29th and the 30th. And I know some board members were available on one day and others weren't on others. So
At what time?
I
12 noon, I thought.
I think we were talking about a lunchtime.
29th and 30th of November?
The next 2 days? I could do Thursday. At noon is good for me.
I can only do tomorrow, Thursday.
You
During
can
the
do
day I
tomorrow.
Won't be around.
Possibly do Wednesday. I don't know. What, you're talking about noon?
Correct.
Okay, yeah. Possibly Wednesday, unavailable on Thursday.
All right, then I will move things around and I can be available tomorrow at noon.
Tomorrow noon. Airport.
Airport, any specific
Plain Jane's, not that I'm
plain Jane?
advocating for people to, get a plain old sandwich, but it's easy to find.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Glines. As always, we greatly appreciate your assistance in the proceedings.
Thanks, Andy.
It's a pleasure.
That's where their administrative offices are, so we'll park there right at Plain Jane.
Okay.
If you have an electric car, there's a place to charge your car there as well. So Wednesday, the 29th at noon?
Tomorrow.
I will let our host know. So we, it's, heard somebody on TV the other night say, gosh, it seems like Thanksgiving was a month ago, but it wasn't. Certainly the holidays have put a crimp in getting work done because we've been gone. So I have the decision for
Nader?
Lutter's Paul, for Nader Muad. Essentially, I put in the conditions, I used as the base for this decision, 72 North Main, where we already had an existing property. So this is crafted off of that and basically put in those conditions that we had talked about. The vote was 4-0-1. Some of those conditions, I just want to make sure the board are aware of. The hours of operation, 6 to 7, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 on Sundays. The maximum number of dogs is 60, with a staffing level of 1 staff for 12 dogs. The overnight boarding is limited to 20 dogs with a minimum of 1 staff to 12 dogs. So if they've got 12 dogs spending the night, they're going to have 1 staff. If they've got 20 dogs spending the night, they're going to have 2 staff.
To the extent possible, we talked about this, all dogs within the facility shall remain on site. We talked about how folks sometimes walk the dogs, and we can't prohibit them from using a public street, but we put that as a condition. The play area out back, enclosed with a screened fence. Landscaping will be installed, and the site cleared of any debris on site and inside the building prior to occupancy. We noticed on our site visit there was a lot of stuff in the building. I'm sure there's a market for those Daniel Steele VHS tapes, but they just haven't found it yet. But there's a lot of stuff in the building that really has to go. That disaster emergency plan has not been provided yet, but will be approved by the fire department prior to occupancy. And the other thing that we tweaked, I have the entire contents of the fire department's memo in the condition number 12. And I think the other thing that we had talked about, in their application, they had noted that there may be grooming in the future. So much like with 72 North Main, they had exit baths, but not grooming. In this place, these folks said, well, maybe grooming in the future. So the special permit notes that grooming is not permitted, and grooming, if decided, would have to require some additional review by the town.
I expect the Board of Health would be
Correct.
part within that.
So the numbers, the boarding, up the site, disaster plan, and the things we had proposed before. So those are the things that are in that decision, and we'd love to get it filed so we can start the appeal period with the town clerk. So with that, I will end. Bill Cullum, associate, was designated by the chair. That's in the decision. So Bill, you get to be the first person to sign this decision as it heads around the horn.
All right, I'm sure we have planning board member notes we discussed before the meeting, but I believe John, in regards to a Super Bowl tomorrow night?
Yep. High school boys are heading out to Gillette Field for the game tomorrow. I'm sure everybody knows. See you all out there.
What
As
time's
far
the
as-
game? 5:30?
5:30, I believe, is kickoff. And as far as youth football in town, we had our midgets won their Super Bowl, and the Pee-wees were knocked out in the playoffs, and the Mites made it to the Super Bowl but fell in the final moments to their foes. But all in all, it was a good season had by all. Everybody, we all made it to the playoffs, all had a great season. Thanks everyone for all your support, and hope to see you out there next year.
Oh, tomorrow, right?
Well,
You know?
tomorrow I've already said that, but also flag football season, we're getting ready to kick that off. So keep your eyes out on your email and social media for the for applications for flag football. And
I believe that the Patriots YouTube channel might be broadcasting tomorrow night's game for those people that
are they?
can't. That's what I heard. I expect that it's at Gillette Stadium.
That'd be pretty cool if they did.
Yeah, so I'm not entirely certain on that. Potential topics for town meeting. We have currently changed to the usage chart in regards to frontage and area requirements. Changing the stipend for the planning board, and as I understand it, there's a request for, came from the town clerk today. Is that for codification or changing the class?
Yes, so E-code is going to be, and apparently we had a contract with them for a while, put our zoning and town regulations online. So with that, there'll be some modest renumbering, and so that has to go to town meeting to say, taking our zoning bylaw, so tweaking the numbering system on it a bit, and then we'll be able to publish and digitally, so people have a much easier time looking into the regulations, which is good for search the regulations. And it's very helpful.
Quick question.
I'm not signing this, right?
Mr. Robinson was absent
Yeah,
For-
so I just signed it as an acknowledgement.
the dog.
Say again?
The kennel, the dog kennel, I don't believe Mr. Robinson voted on it, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I think it says in there.
Yeah, it says that we were,
Yeah, John wasn't here.
yeah, I just signed it as an acknowledgement.
So John is listed as absent and you're listed as abstaining.
Oh, okay, John was, okay, yep,
Yeah.
all
Do
right.
you want me to sign it?
Yes, please.
So the E-codes, I think that's, and what about the discussion we had, the presentation from the state in regards to such things as pervious sidewalks and in cul-de-sac changes and infiltration? I don't see that we can vet that out appropriately in time for the April town meeting, but I think it's something that the board should sit down and discuss.
Subdivision regulations don't go to town meeting. Zoning goes to town meeting. So we want to change our subdivision regulations, we figure out what we want to do, we hold a hearing for it, and we vote them.
Okay,
So subdivision regulations are our bailiwick.
see if we can work that in by springtime.
Right.
All right. The chair will accept a motion to approve the minutes of 10/24/2023.
I'll make said motion.
Motion made by Ms. Sardillo,
A second.
the second by Mr. Williams. I don't, you might
was
not have,
absent.
right.
Yep.
I
I
think-
will abstain.
I think Kevin was here, but you were out.
Yep. I missed a lot. I missed a couple of.
So that's wrong?
What's wrong?
It's wrong that, no, I wasn't here.
Oh, absent was, oh, no,
Is that the one
he
that I
wasn't,
was-
you were here,
I was
but
here
you
for?
couldn't vote because you had been absent, so.
Right.
But
Okay.
Bill Cullum was here.
You haven't missed a meeting at all,
No, but what was it, October?
24th.
24th.
Yeah, that would have been my first meeting.
Your first meeting, so,
So this is wrong.
yeah, we'll edit it. Let me see that for a second.
I don't think I got them.
It's, they couldn't see you hiding over there, that's what it was. Bill Cullen was present, that's the edit that we're gonna change on this. Other than that, I don't think,
The guy that was absent noticed that.
right?
If you're not here, put your hand up.
So
Minutes, they'll call them in attendance.
Present. Any other concerns, questions, or?
It's the one before that.
Yeah. So the chair will accept the motion to approve. I already made the motion. Ms. Sardillo made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Williams. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Mr. Gatsky.
Aye.
Kevin Robinson abstains.
Ellen Stillo says aye.
John Williams says aye.
And Mr. Shea says aye. Mr. Bott, it got brought to my attention that this was the last night legislatively to hold this public hearing that came across tonight for Route 44 development.
No.
It's not? At 40
No,
It looks like it was filed on October 18th.
so the plan was filed on on the 18th. And so we have those 30 days to allow people to make comment and file a hearing. So typically, it's a month before we get to have a hearing at all because of advertisement and the requirements of the zoning bylaw give people 30 days to make comment. So we could have had this on, that 30 days would have been November 18th, but we didn't have a meeting then. So this is our first opportunity after that 30 days.
When was our meeting in November?
November 14th and November 28th.
Well, we could have held it on the 14th. It should be done in conjunction. We were asked if anything was on the plate. It wasn't listed on the future meetings. It's a lot of information to take in over a weekend.
So we want to make sure that we're following the bylaw, and so 30 days is pretty much a standard everywhere I've been. Usually because back in the old days, the papers only took ads to run on Friday, so you were constrained by the newspaper when you run an ad. So with the Patriot Ledger, there's more flexibility in the ads, but still 30 days out is typically what we post a meeting for.
Well, we should shoot, we've discussed it before, it should have been listed under future meetings, and 28 days would have been fine. We might have had questions for other boards, we still might have questions for other boards in regards to these projects, and it should be done in conjunction with the other boards. It's not, there's no requirement that we wait till everybody else. There's a requirement that we wait till all the recommendations are in, but there's no requirement that we don't start before that 30 days. Some of the boards have 45 days.
Yes, like the Board of Health. The practice has been, and my practice has always been, do not hold a hearing unless there's been 30 days to allow all those boards and committees to make their comments. So 30 days is what I've done for, I don't know, we're 1998 or 25 years or so. So that is the standard practice. As I said before, the applicant, and the only thing we have a hard deadline to make a decision on is a subdivision plan. Special permits, the hearing has to be open within 65 days. So the state assumed that, well, you don't want to hold somebody up by holding a hearing too late. So I always try to get things on the agenda as soon as possible. And that as soon as possible with 30 days was this meeting, because we didn't have a meeting on the 18th.
Again, I think the 14th would have been sufficient. We had questions to ask. It was something that would have been continued anyways. It's a very big project, and we might have questions to ask from other committees, and other committees might want to meet with us with their recommendations in regards to this. It's, at the very least, we should have been notified under future meetings that this was coming up. Even if we hadn't set a future date, we could have estimated that date.
Yep. I'm going to stick with what I've done and what all my colleagues have done historically is don't have a hearing within 30 days. You know, if the luck of the draw is that 30 days falls on the 29th, you might, but, you know, to your point, maybe you could have had a meeting on the 28th, but the standard practice is in 30 days. So we have these three.
That's not the standard practice for the board, though.
The board doesn't have a standard practice. Is there something in the procedure manual that says open this thing within 14 days, 28 days, 38 days? There is not.
No,
there is a process that I follow that ensures we get input from all those boards and committees.
And we
the
understand,
applicant,
as a matter of fact, the planning board requires, and wants those, but on a project, on any project, but specifically the project that we had in front of us tonight is an extensive project, and now all of a sudden, we don't have a meeting on December 25th. We're adding 2 more meetings in almost specifically for this project, but then we're on a deadline in 6 weeks, a 6-week deadline for a $32 million project, 300 acres, extensive. And it should have been discussed with the chairman. The chairman sets the agenda, and he should have been aware of what was coming up. I will accept your recommendations, but I think we could have handled this within the 2-day period.
all right.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
So, as I have said before, the deadline for a subdivision plan is 90 days when a preliminary plan has been submitted. So that deadline is January 13th. I have not had an instance yet where an applicant didn't agree or the board didn't agree to extend a deadline for that. Because to quote a very long-serving member of the Kingston Planning Board, the board is always ready to vote, but you, the applicant, might not want that vote to happen. Because when in doubt, you're going to vote it down.
I agree with you 100%.
Applicant will almost 100% agree to an extension, unless they think somebody's gaming them by dragging their project out infinitum. So under best practice, we hold a hearing within 30 days. We meet those deadlines, which is why I suggested the 5th and the 19th as dates, knowing we probably weren't going to get anybody here on the 26th. So we have 3 meetings before that deadline shows up. We had one tonight, we'll have one on the 5th, we'll likely have one on the 19th as well, and likely on January 13th.
Now, it says open hearing by 11/28/2023. If, God forbid, some members couldn't make it, we couldn't get a quorum, we lost power, there was a fire, some reason we couldn't hold this, a giant storm tonight, Where would the board be?
Well, there's no requirement to open a hearing. The only requirement to open a hearing is for special permits. You shall open it within, so there's not really a number there that says open the hearing by. I plugged the 28th in there because that's the date we're opening the hearing. If it was a special permit,
Okay.
that date open hearing by would be 65 days from the date of the application.
So
For a special
You can
permit-
understand my confusion then.
So for a special permit, you basically have a date filed and a date you have to open by, but no date to close by. For a subdivision plan, you have a date you're filed and a date you have to end by, but there's no date required. So since we got these 3 blocks in there, I try to fill them in with dates.
It just confused me because it had me nervous and worried that, something could happen. We might have had to cancel the meeting or whatever the case may be, and then we're dealing with other issues.
So I'm very proud of the fact that with my track record, and it was drilled into me in my early days in Kingston, where there's a restaurant in Kingston, I think it may still be open, Percy's Place.
There's a couple, yeah.
And Percy's Place is there because the ZBA didn't act on something in time to say, no, that's not something you get to do there. So that was a constructive approval. So early days, I was pointed out the perils of constructive approval. And to date, I have not had a constructive approval on my watch, whether it's for the reduction of subdivisions, whether it's for a permit, whether it's for an A&R plan. I know the process, I know the law, and I've not dropped the ball to date,
No, we weigh heavily on,
Yep.
on your advice and your experience.
which is why we did this exactly the way we did it.
And which is also why we've also changed the agenda to give the board more time to prepare for certain things.
Maybe if it says open hearing on 11/28, and that's when we're opening it. By kind of means like a deadline.
Right, it's just
You
all,
get it, it's-
which
oh,
was
it's
the
gotta
point
be-
I'm getting.
Maybe you need to differentiate. The hearing needs to be opened by, then that's got to be that. But if we are opening it on this date, it's because that's when we're meeting.
Yeah.
Maybe just one tweak.
Like I said,
to
for a
take the
special
pressure off.
permit, there is an open hearing date by.
Right.
For a subdivision, there's not.
Deadline to open on or by, but we're still before it, so we're all set. Maybe just a little,
So technically, those 3 lines you see on the agenda, filed, there's always a filed date.
yeah.
Open hearing by, there's not always a date for that. I could have left it blank.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Just-
Yeah, could have left it blank, but I put something in there so people like seeing dates going across the board. As you see in the top line for the minor modification, we've got a filed open hearing, not applicable deadline. There's no deadline for those things. So we try to put as much information out there as we can without having an agenda that's going to be 4 or 5 pages long.
All right, good enough for me. Thank you very much. The chair will now accept a motion to adjourn.
I would be happy to make that motion.
Motion made by Ms. Sardillo,
I'll second it again.
seconded by Mr. Williams. Further discussion? Seeing none? Mr. Gatsky?
Aye.
Mr. Robinson says aye.
Ellen Sedillo says aye.
Don Lamb says aye.
And Mr. Shea says aye. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
All righty, so somewhere we've got the decision.